Welcome to my cellar again. This might be a little shorter than normal, I'm not sure. Still getting ready to leave tomorrow. We leave late morning to go to the airport to go down to the Florida Keys for, well, we're coming back Monday, so I don't know, 3.5 days. Visit our son and his wife, and I'm going to drink a margarita in Key West, and I think we're going to go out for an afternoon on a boat and drive around and see some of the Keys. Let's see, there's something I don't want to forget at the end. So let me take the note now because I didn't put it in my show notes. Wouldn't want to, sorry, I don't mean to be rude here, but it's been a strange couple of days here at the Cask House. So we'll get to that. In the meantime, Jennell was a good Facebook friend, and I talked to her at GaryCon a few years back. I loved everything she put out, and her work her work also in creating tabletop minis and terrain from 3D printing. Her skills as a painter were also very good, and I miss the stories of the old TSR at the con also. Such a great loss and another old school game that the world has lost. Yeah, I know, we're getting scarce, aren't we? Getting scarce. Of course, I don't play up my age like some people do. I don't dress in old man clothes and old man attire. I can't help it. My hair's gray. Art and Arcana is the coffee table art book to which you're referring. Yes, it is. And it's also the one that I gave a friend for Christmas, my copy, because he would enjoy it so much more. And not only is it's a great look at the amazing old school art, but offers a lot of history. Yes, it's a wonderful book. No doubt about it. I just blanked on the name last week. You know, shit happens when I'm doing these stream of consciousness things. The blocks, the stumbles in the road occasionally pop up. I highly recommend it. I like that you can see the evolution of orcs and other monsters from the 70s up to the current 5e edition. And also in response, well, do I recall the days when the kobolds were little dog people before they morphed into little dragon people. Yeah, we're going to talk some more about that morphing stuff a little later. But I remember too. I remember conversations upstairs in the building going, okay, and the kobolds, right, they're the ones that look like little dogs? Yes, they're the ones that look, and then they were created. Would you prefer a theater of the mind or miniatures for a new game involving adults and teens? I think my new group has miniatures, and I had a bad experience as a new player playing with a theater of the mind with two geniuses whom I couldn't understand. Well, okay. Interesting question. It has several aspects. Number one, are you talking as a player, or are you going to run it? You're going to DM it. If you're going to DM it, go Theater of the Mind. Believe me, you will enjoy it because you will call upon untapped powers of description and elaboration as you do, because you can't possibly write down everything you're going to say when it happens about the big cave that's full of shiny crystals all over the walls and ceilings. Little tiny crystals the size of your pinky nail. Okay? But you will find a way and you will have more fun. And as you describe it, each of those people will see a cave covered in little reflective things the size of a fingernail, and every one of them will see a different cave. That's the beauty of Theater of the Mind. Every one of them will call on a memory that they have deep in their memory banks of having seen a documentary or been in one or whatever of a cave that was very sparkly. And that's all you have to do. It doesn't have to be the same cave. It has to be a cave in their head that fits those descriptions. That's why I like Theater of the Mind. When you get people that want to awe you with their complex intellects, well, if you're running it, you just tell them, hey, you mind talking in terms of what we can all understand? or something else mildly ridiculing their pretentiousness, if they're one of the party members and you're part of the party, oh, well, then you can crank them any way you want for being poofs. Oh, well, whoops, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, poofs used to have a different connotation. Not that. For just being snobs, we'll use scratch poofs, insert snobs. I prefer theater of the mind. I'm biased. That's the way I learned. That's the way I still run them. Okay? And the Wheel of Blame is all theater of the mind. Couldn't possibly build something that would represent the Wheel of Blame because of its ever-changing nature. And I know I'm biased, but when you can't afford to have all of Stefano's lovely miniature dungeon walls and lit torches and all that stuff, you can describe them. You're walking down a corridor, rough-hewn, approximately 8 or 9 feet wide, maybe 8 feet tall. Every now and again, there's a crudely hammered iron sconce nailed into the wall. Most have burned out torches in them. Some are empty. Okay, I just described $60 worth of terrain. Well, maybe not that much, but and if you can play on that, I love Stefano's stuff and Dwarven Forge's stuff, and there are others out there also, but Stefano's the master and started it all. I love it. I love the stuff, and it's super fun to play with, but I don't need it. It's just extra icing on a cake. I'm not okay. Now we'll go back to this morphing that's happened to kobolds. Pardon me. I've noticed the kobolds changed sometime before 1990. They used to be short dog folk, and somewhere along the path they became short dragon folk, or depending upon the supplement, short dragon revering lizard folks. This may have been after your time. It certainly was. Well, mostly. But do you have any information that would explain this change? For an iconic baddie, the aware public seems to have no positive or negative opinion on this. Well, as I mentioned earlier, when Dave was, originally doing concept stuff and illustrations for our early stuff, yes, kobolds are the dog ones. Orcs are the pig face. Okay, and that was Gary's image, probably some of Dave's image. I don't know. I never heard him describe the various things, but that was part of their image. That's how they had been described in that theater of the mind, because there were there weren't even drawings, let alone figures. Okay, and because I don't know, it might have been easier to refer to the dog people or the pig faces. I don't know. Why they changed? Well, one possibility is that a new artist was assigned at some point, and in some art meeting, they decided somebody who probably didn't know their ass from second base decided that they weren't scary enough or weird enough or whatever, and so they started morphing. And my God, they even evolved for a short evolutionary line there. The lizards, they died out. They couldn't survive. I don't know. So one artist's idea of what's cool, and another different writer decides, I'm going to be better than the old one, so not only am I going to write a better adventure, but they're going to have better looking monsters. I don't know. Art directors make those decisions at the mercy of vice presidents and presidents, whatever. I have no idea why they decided to do it. They might have been trying to diversify their monster line at the time. How they got into the dragon revering lizard folk, God only knows what pipe dream that was a result of, but it did. Something new, spruce it up. Hey, look at these. Hey, be glad it isn't Warhammer, because if it had been Warhammer, then they'd have told you that all the figures that you've drawn of the dog-leg people that you've made, bought for the dog-leg people, couldn't be used anymore because now they look like this. That's what Warhammer did. I don't know that the general public would get up in arms about it one way or another unless they were a historian or a game aficionado or a game nut like myself, who would go, oh, and look at all those old editions, or see a book like Arts and Arcana and go, my, that's odd. Because to my knowledge, none of those appearance changes coincided with any kind of behavioral changes or changes to the creature or its behaviors or anything. Not to my knowledge. Now, I gotta figure that the dragon, the revering lizard people probably had some different shit going on. But again, I only imagine. Oh, well, here we go. Just found you, Tim. Well, hell's bells, I've been in Ohio since 1981. Glad to see another old guy still in the game. Well, yes. Till they throw me out at home for the last time, yes. I played my first game in '79. We had to get a book and dice from a head shop in Appalachia. Had to put nail polish on the D20 to designate 110, 1120. Great. Couldn't fully interpret Gary's rules, but adapted and had great fun. Exactly what you were meant to do. You did it right. Because you had great fun. You must have done it right. Flash step forward. Today I 3D print minis and train for my home campaign, and still love the basic format I created all those years ago. My current group is all wrapped up in 5e rules and Adventures League guidelines. I don't care. The core of friends around a table, fantasy world make-believe is still thrilling and creates amazing stories. It doesn't adjust. I love that comment. That's what it's about. It's about having fun. It's about creating stories. Camaraderie, fellowship, same groove. All groove into the same tune, however you want to, characterize it. Yes. I busted my ribs laughing when you got out the fruit containers. I have a stern ban from my wife, as I am a magpie, always hoarding styrofoam from packing. I have one I'm turning into a little harbor diorama. Well, if there's people still doing it, more power to you. I know I could have fun doing sci-fi stuff out of those things that like I showed you. With a good razor and a fine brush. Oh yeah, I could have fun. You also sent me down the Dwarven Forge rabbit hole last week. Well, Stefan will be glad to hear that. Also, your answer, how to stay positive, made me active again. Wonderful. Yesterday, I met my old DM, and he came on board, and we're launching the D&D Club in April now. Thanks so much, mate. My question this week, how do you go about saying to players what options are limited in a campaign? Very perceptive question. You announce what edition this campaign is going to be played as in, around, under. Okay? I suggest that you go back a ways. Now, if you don't have access to the old books of a particular edition that you want to go back on, second, third, second anyway. Second's not bad starting place. I cleaned up a lot of the typos in first. Or go to Swords and Wizards or Swords and Wizardry. Matt Finch's book, excellent book. Clone. All right, it's one of the it's in my opinion the best of the clones. And you say, these are the rules we're playing by. These are the parameters and nothing else. And you leave open the fact that there is a possibility down the road, if the group feels strongly, that's when you start making house rules. But you start with a printed set of rules, whatever they are. You start simpler if you want. And then, get the mechanics are all pretty much the same. So a simpler start is an easier start. And you just announce this. We're playing this under Swords and Wizardry, 2nd edition. If it's in there, fine. If it isn't, too bad. And as you play, all rules, and this is not to say anything bad about Matt's game, all rules will come to a point where they're not clearly understood for one of many reasons. Maybe just bafflement. Maybe somebody's pretending not to understand them because they want to interpret them a different way, or they want them to be seen in a different light. Many, many reasons. That's when you make house rule decisions. Or as DM, you just rule by fiat and go, no, this is the way it is. And if you're not real heavy-handed about that, if you seem more to be guiding than dictating, shouldn't be a problem. Shouldn't pose you any problem, really. But that way you don't get into a bunch of half this and half that and all that. And I recommend going back to the early editions because they don't have all that Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey circus crap in them. Easier starting point. These rules, no more than these rules and only these rules. Okay, and then that's how you start. Then as you go along, things morph, they change, they get interpreted, reinterpreted. But when you're starting from scratch, this is it, nothing else. And hopefully it works. Nothing guaranteed, but it's the best, fairest, most level playing field start that I can think of. Let's see. Do you have any fun memories of Dave McGarry, apart from misspelling his name twice? Actually, Dave and I had very little interaction. We were in the 2-building thing then. And so I was in one building, and the designers and the artists and that were all starting to move down to the other building. And my building had the first hobby shop. And so our paths didn't cross that often. Now, I've since had several very friendly interactions with him, meeting at conventions, or whatever. But I don't remember any, the night we went out and tipped over the statue, or stories like that. What did you think of his board game Dungeon? I loved it, but come back. And if it was a success, how come there were never any expansions released? for the same reason I loved it, but I couldn't tell you the actual number. But it seemed like the game had a bajillion little cards and tickets things that, yeah, they went on, and they went everywhere. I've got one over there. I don't need to go dig it out. But the setup for that game was excruciating. Excruciating. Other than that, it was a great fun game. Now, what would an expansion been? More little bitty cards? Different little bitty cards? They're almost chits. They were so small and flimsy in the beginning. That's all you could do with one board game map. A new board game map that had a different layout of something. Ew, that seems a little stale and trite. I don't know. I understand that it did sell quite well over a long period of time. Okay, I wasn't there for most of that period of time, but I do understand that it did rather well. If an expansion meant more little bitty cards and chits, I don't think they'd have found a ready market. Besides which, it had enough replayability in it that I don't think you really needed it. It never played the same way exactly twice. Not from what I remember. What I remember. As it happens, I've spoken about it before, and this is not to take anything away from Dungeon, but I'm involved with a game called D20 Delving that is it is cleared customs. When I get back from my little short trip that I go on tomorrow, I'll have copies in my hand that I'll be able to show you because we'll be fulfilling a Kickstarter. I have another, oh God, I got a bunch of more book plates to sign. And it is a different. I didn't design it, okay. So I have no dog in that hunt. It is a different version of a game like Dungeon, similar premise. Monsters, treasures, traps, rooms. However, it has a different kind of replayability. And it also has there's all the cards, instead of all those little bitty cards that you had to put on every little square. This has decks, and when you land on whatever, you pick a card, and these cards have QR codes that when you scan them, the card is read out loud for the player. So younger kids can play, people that are sighted, people with literacy issues, and there's no denying that there's a similarity, but there's a similarity. There's so many board games that are so similar to board games from before and from before and before. So I don't think it takes anything away from the original. And yeah, it'll be going out the week after you see this. The first ones will anyway. Because I know I'll see him on Tuesday. He gets the book plates for the other book we're doing, and I get some. Yeah, so I'm sure it'll be going out next week. What sci-fi books outside Appendix N would you most recommend? Well, I'll tell you true. I'm not the best one to recommend sci-fi because I don't read that much. When I was a kid, oh Jesus, 65 years ago, I read everything Heinlein wrote, Asimov. I think they're still classics. I looked at Edgar Rice Burroughs and Mars as sci-fi at the time. Sprague de Camp wrote some. He had a David Shea. You have to look him up as a character. I think it was L. Sprague de Camp that wrote about David Shea, a time traveler. So the science fiction I was into the extreme edges of. I wasn't into rockets. Robots only as far as Asimov took them. So I'm sorry, I can't really. I'm not really. If it's how do you qualify? Is Dune sci-fi or fantasy? Just asking. I don't know. See, I'm vague on that. Sorry. Okay. Gonna wrap this up now. I'm sorry. It's gonna be in a minute. We're packing, getting ready to go to Key West tomorrow to visit with my son and his wife. Never been to the Keys. Been to Florida, Upper Florida, Gulf side, but never down that far in the Keys. So I'm looking forward to that. Been to Fort Lauderdale, but still. Anyway, had a horrifying experience Wednesday. Yeah, I got to account for what day I'm saying this and when you're going to see it. Wednesday. Computer was wonky. Wonky, just wonky. And Jim came over, and there was a thing on the TV set that, reboot your router and otherwise call. And so all day long we thought it was going to be fixed, and it wasn't. So we called later that afternoon, and we got no TV, no landline, no internet, no Wi-Fi, no web. And we were told that there would be someone here Thursday, and they did. And so Wednesday night, we sat around looking at each other. Because, we couldn't even watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, which is what we usually watch while we're eating dinner. And we resorted to playing gin at the kitchen table. And at one point I said, I feel like we ought to be in a log cabin with a fire burning in the fireplace, It's, you don't realize. Our phones still worked, okay, we just using data, whatever, but our phones worked. But when you're used to watching the news, when you're used to, watching a given show in the morning while you're drinking your coffee, or in the afternoon, you fall into habits you don't know. I couldn't get online and work. So I'm completely cut off from everything I'm involved in. It's a day and a half before we're getting ready to go out of town. All these loose ends dangling. I wish there was a way I could get my own satellite uplink or something and never be dependent upon the cable company or the communications company or, whatever you call them. We have two here. We have Spectrum, which we learned to hate, And then we went to Cincinnati Bell, which became Alta Fiber, and now we're learning to hate them. All your entertainment is streamed. I could have played some CDs. We found an old radio and turned it on, listened to the Golden Oldies station for a while, just to have noise in the room. I've got tinnitus. I don't need silence. No, give me some noise, please. Combat the tinnitus, compete. So anyway, it was an interesting lesson that I learned about my dependence upon being able to get online, there's 2 silly games that I play. There's Facebook. There's my email. When all of a sudden you're limited to your phone, phoning or messaging, because I refuse to do anything else on that phone. So now we have a brand new Wi-Fi router, and what used to only work on the one TV now works on the other TV too, because they use the same router, and I control it through an app on my phone. But anyway, the problem's solved, obviously, or I wouldn't be making this. So I can't think of anything else. I hope if you're wet, I hope you dry out. If you're snowy, I hope you warm up. If you're windy, I hope it calms down. If it's flooding, I hope it recedes. I mean, the weather is just holy crap everywhere. So I hope if yours is sucking, it abates soon. And on that note, I'll leave you. Dodata Govi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called it Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's a curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.